Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is Vintage Story. Today I'm going to be teaching you all about leather making and the benefits that you can reap from it. As you can see here, I have a few different displays set up. Yes, leather is a gateway into better storage, better armor, all sorts of different things, even better weaponry. And it really starts with where you can find the different resource. That's going to start with raw hides. You're going to find these on different critters out in the world. Yes, you will probably have to end up killing a few critters out there in order to obtain leather. To start with, there are a few different raw hides that you're going to want to choose from. The small ones are going to be from hares, lambs, foxes, and raccoons, as shown on this sign over here. The medium ones are going to be from pigs, hyenas, and wolves. Even though this says pie, you're not going to get leather from pie. The large ones are going to be from sheep and gazelles. Gazelles are likely going to be in very southern climates. You're probably not going to find them around your standard spawn area. And of course, the huge ones are going to be found on bears, which are quite difficult to defeat. So I do recommend that you go for the easier prey. Now, this isn't all that you're going to need. This is just the starting equipment. If I walk over here, you're probably going to want to have access to a saw, which is meaning you're not going to be able to get leather straight off the get-go. You're going to need to progress some of your metalworking and stuff in order to get there. But once you do, it won't hurt to also have a hammer. You're likely going to have one anyway, but this will speed things along, though it's not required. On top of that, you're going to want to have access to water or being able to bucket it again. That unlocks with a saw, so you should be good. And in some cases, you will likely want a quern. Now, the hammer and the quern are interchangeable in some ways. I'll take you through this, but these are just some of the materials you'll need, as well as barrels. Barrels are really, really important. Plus, of course, the raw material that you're going to need, hides. So once you've got some barrels out there, you're going to want to start soaking the material. In this case, your raw hides of different sizes. You cannot put different sizes in one barrel. It has to be the same size, and you're only going to be able to fit so much in each one. In this case, a barrel will hold 25 small, 12 medium, 8 large, or 5 huge, which will leave you a different amount left over if you're trying to stack them or you have a large quantity of them. And this is fine, more or less. You're probably going to want to use small ones or huge ones without any waste. Otherwise, you'll have some leftovers from the larger medium ones. And what I mean by that is more or less how lime and borax come into this, because this is the other large ingredient you're going to need. You also will need some logs, whether they be oak or acacia. In this case, I might say acacia. But you will need some of those as well for making the tannin later on. To start, though, you will need to find some limestone, chalkstone, or borax. And no, you don't necessarily have to find it. You might also be able to find a trader. You could find it in different loot caches out in the world. Or you could be really lucky like I am and be in a limestone biome. If you're looking to have a little bit of a shortcut for this, though slightly more challenging start with less cattails, you might want to use the seed that I am currently using, which starts you about here in this limestone area. The seed name is Mischififmice, with no capitals and no spaces. That's it. It should work in most situations, most versions of Vintage Story, but that could get you started off so that you don't need to worry about looking for limestone, because other plays you might still travel 80,000 blocks and still not come across one going in a straight line. It's kind of random, but there are multiple ways of getting it, whether you're looking for borax with a prospecting pick, or you're coming across the different stones, or just buying them from vendors. Now, if you do go the way of limestone or chalkstone, the end result is going to be the same. You will end up with lime, provided that you either craft it in a crafting grid with copper hammer, just like you see here, and it will crush it into lime. Alternately, you can insert those into a quern of some sort and then manually crush it, or if you have automation set up already, then you can have your windmill or other automation produce lime as it is. Now, alternately, if you have borax, or you're able to obtain it in some way, you only can use a quern in order to grind it up. It will not be crushable with a hammer. Now, the hammer will use durability in order to make this, but it does save you a ton of time. You don't have to stand there crushing this thing with a quern the whole time. But borax does require that. On the plus side though, borax will get you a lot more for what you are actually producing. And what I mean by that is that a barrel will hold 5 buckets of water, because 1 bucket is 10 liters. You can hold 50 liters of water in a barrel. And if you have 50 lime, that will make 50 liters of lime water. And if you have 20 borax that has been crushed, that will make 50 liters of water. So let me grab a bucket here, finish this one up here, and I will grab some lime, and I'll grab some borax, and I'll show you the difference here. So if I put in a partial amount of lime, nothing will happen. But if I put in the exact amount, because it's a 1-to-1 ratio of lime to water, it instantly turns to lime water. There is no, you don't need to mix it or anything like that. It just happens. Now if I go over here to the borax stuff, same thing. And this is with any of them. If you don't have the right quantity in there, it's not going to do it. But if I put in the rest of it, 20 pieces makes 50 liters of diluted borax. Now the difference between these two in this situation, there isn't one. It's just named differently, and they both function in exactly the same way. You have 50 liters of lime water or diluted borax. They can both be used for making your first stage of leather. So let's grab some hides here. I have 25 small ones, and I'm going to take a partial amount with the medium ones here as well, just so that you can see the difference of exact amounts of what you can have in here and stuff that you might have a little bit extra of. In this case, actually, I'm going to grab 1 extra of the mediums, just so I can show you that you can only have 13. You'll see the difference here. 50 liters of lime water, 25 raw hides, small, and it says it will turn into 25 soaked hide. In this case, it doesn't have that notice, but if I take 1 away, there we go, 12. So you can feasibly just keep adding 1 at a time until it stops and tells you have too many, or it just stops telling you that you'll make anything from it, because they'll start filling up. And if you look at this, you can actually see it in the barrel. Once you start putting in enough of these, they'll start piling up, and you might actually see them above the liquid even. But obviously, you need to make sure that it says it'll turn into something once it's sealed. One other small difference, I guess I was incorrect on that one, is that you do have a different timeline. If you're using lime water, it's 20 hours. If you're using the borax, it's going to be 18. Either case, we're going to seal those up, and then we're going to wait a little bit of time. But before I start just waiting for these things to happen, I probably should have set a little something else going, and that is going to consist of logs. You're going to want some oak logs or acacia logs, depending upon what you have going in your area. These are the two that you're going to want that can make tannin out of water. Same thing, you're going to want to put 5 in each one until you just put them in there until it says it will turn it into 50 liters, and I recommend you just fill it up. Might as well just max things out. Then over here you go with the acacia logs and make yourself the same. Now this does say 24 hours, so these will take a little bit longer, so I recommend you get those going as soon as possible, probably before you even have this going, because those will take about the same. But if you just come back to it at the same time of day the following day, then you're probably going to be fine for both of these. And you don't have to have everything in multiple barrels. You don't have to have a ton of them. This just speeds things along and allows you to mass produce a bit more. You can use the same barrel over and over for multiple things, provided that there isn't any leftover in it. Now, just for good measure, I'm going to take some precautions, and I'm going to add some logs to these other barrels as well. And after a time, any of these 4 that I have, whether it's acacia or if it's the oak, it will eventually turn into weak tannin. Now, if you take another 5 logs of either of those two and seal it again after another day, it will turn into strong tannin, which you're going to definitely want that as well, because there's going to be multiple levels for this to do so. So what I do often do is, when I'm first starting out, I've got 1 barrel that's going to have the lime water for the first initial soak of the leather. Then I've got another one started up for some regular tannin, and I've got a 3rd one started for the strong tannin, because that's going to take another quantity or time period for that to process. So usually 3 barrels is enough for one setup of the different amounts that you might have going. And it has been 24 hours later, through the wonders of commands. Yes, I typed it in and just sped things along a little bit quicker. Now if I look in here, I have soaked hide. This is the first stage of any of your leather making. There are several, but it's technically not really that difficult. I'll do a quick summary at the end of the video as well. I'll have a link, or if not a link, at least one of those little progress bar things, so you can check it out and just go over that quickly if you need to. But you can also look this up on the wiki yourself. But taking the soaked hides and a knife will get you scraped hides, which is the next step. You're then going to want to put it back in and soak it in tannin. Well, I don't have any there, so let's put some in here, and I'm going to seal this up. But as I've got some more over here, oh wait, the diluted borax only made me, well, it made all of the ones that I needed, which actually let me open this up, put these in this one. But you notice that there's a little bit left over. This is the disadvantage of using the medium or the large ones, is that with 50 liters it doesn't quite translate, so you can probably do some math and figure that out. You can always just take a bucket and bucket the rest of this out, or put it into another barrel so that you're not wasting any, because otherwise this would end up being 2 of your well, lime water or borax water that would be wasted if you break the barrel. Now, something I should mention about the scraped hides is that if you take a look at those, they actually have a different use beyond just going into the next step of leatherworking. You can actually make parchment, which is just taking a pair of shears of some sort plus that scraped hide, and you'll end up getting some parchment. Now, there are other ways of getting parchment as well, but this is a one-to-one way of doing it and allowing you to make different things like books or even labels for your different crates that you might have made or found in the world. Moving on, we have these here. Same thing. Once you've got the tannin from the different oak or acacia barrels finishing fermenting, then you seal these up, but it says after 3 days for each one. So you're going to have a minimum of 4 days just to get through the first couple stages here. And once again, through the magic of commands, I have made things a little bit faster processed. I come back and I have prepared hides, and it used up all of that. And again, this one here has a couple liters left of weak tannin. Again, you can still store this and then reuse it once you have enough in order to match the different types. The small ones are the easiest ones to work with because they use the least amount of content, so you can get a much more accurate amount used. You can even have just like a barrel processing like one at a time if you're really desperate. But once you take these out, you don't need to scrape them anymore. They're pretty much scraped. And I have some more weak tannin over here, but if I put these into weak tannin, it doesn't really change anything. It stays the same. This is why we wanted to make strong tannin. So if we take some strong tannin, put it in here, and then we seal this, after another 4.5 days, it will turn into leather. So this is the last one. It does take pretty much a week for you to get there, or actually a little bit more than a week for you to get to the end result that you're trying to get to, but it definitely makes you kind of do other things while you're waiting for this stuff to process. And once again, through the magic of commands, I have sped time up considerably. Looking in the barrel, I now have a whole bunch of leather, which you can see is actually kind of rendered a little bit differently for each different stage as you progress through the stuff. But I've got 25 leather here and 24 here. And you'll notice I had 12 of the medium ones. I had 25 of the small. So this goes to show you, and of course I've got a little bit of leftover strong tannin as well, but it goes to show you that you can get more leather from different size raw hides. So to sum up, you're going to want to get some raw hides, take some lime and or borax and or chalk, crush those up, put them in a barrel filled with water, have some other barrels filled with logs. While those are steeping, once they're done, then you can take the hides out of the lime water / borax water, and you can scrape it, put it into the tannin, get some more tannin going, and while that's processing the following day, you're going to want to reprocess it again into strong tannin. By that time, this may be getting close to actually finishing. Then you'll take it and put it into the strong tannin, and then you have leather. That sounds like a lot, but honestly you're just dipping it in white water, dipping it in brown water, dipping it in really brown water. And in between there, you've got a scrape. That's really it. It's just a time issue and a bunch of materials. And with it, you can make yourself some leather reinforced wooden shields. If you're not familiar with the differences that adds, it's going to add a little bit more durability and damage absorption to those shields from a regular wooden shield, which doesn't have the leather additions in there. By grabbing this, you can see that by adding some of the leather, you can make that. But most importantly, the thing that you're probably going to use your first leather for is making leather backpacks, which is really going to expand your inventory considerably. But on top of that, you can also, if you're a hunter, you can make a recurve bow. Otherwise, you can at least make a longbow. But those can be made with just regular pelts as well, which I do recommend you go with that route instead, because it's a bit quicker to process one pelt than it is one leather. Alternately, you can make a few different items, but the best part of once you've got leather, and yes, you can also dye it, I will show you how to do those mostly, is that you can then gain access to a leather armor, which isn't really that good. It looks pretty good, but it's not that effective. The jerkin, even less so. It kind of looks more like a brown duvet, but this is the base for making something like this, plate mail armor, which you'll need this jerkin set up first, which then gets overlaid with chainmail, which then gets overlaid with plates, making your plate armor. But you need to start somewhere, and this is the beginning. Now, if you want to change the color of your leather so that you can make your shield look a little bit prettier than maybe what it is, before you make it leather reinforced, or, well, actually it's when you first make your shield, you'll need to actually dye that leather. The most common ingredient that I find is woad. Woad is a blue dye that, when combined with enough water, it's a 2-to-1 it's a 1-to-2 ratio. 1 woad to 2 liters of water will turn into 40 liters of woad blue dye after 8 hours of sealing. Let's seal that, and then I'll speed time ahead, and through the powers of commands, I now have blue dye. Take a little bit of leather and add that in there until it says that you can't add any more. It also depends on how many you end up needing. In this case, only 10, so this is going to be another like 4-to-1 ratio for that, and that takes another 8 hours. Seal that, and then when it's done, you'll have yourself colored leather. Now, there are multiple different dyes and dye solutions that you can choose. This is just one of the easiest ones, and you can even set this up to at least create the woad beforehand or during this, just by gathering a bunch of flowers and some water. And with that, you've got yourself a new backpack, you've got yourself access to different kinds of leather armor or different leather shields or weapons, tools, etc. You can even make some different items that perhaps might help better insulate you in the winter as well. But at the very least, you now have access to leather. I hope you found this useful. If so, be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, and as always, be sure to come visit us on Twitch. We stream there regularly. Till next time, folks. I'll see ya.